I thought I would make an updated rendering tutorial in the big 2026 because I've improved a slight bit. My steps barely changed since the last one, but I think I want to make a better edited one, so here we are. I think my rendering and lighting effects is what most people know me for, so here's me giving a tutorial on how I do it. Alright, so here I have this full piece, right? So first thing is first, you need to make sure that your background and your characters are separated. So as I have right here, my characters are separated from the background. I know the background looks a little bit questionable, but we're doing our best here. So the first step you're gonna do for how I render and whatnot is make a new layer, clip it. Obviously I have to name it, and then select multiply. What this is going to do is it's going to darken the colors beneath it. I'm sure if you're an artist you already know this, but for those that don't know, that's the explanation. So after you select the layer and choose multiply, you are going to choose a color from the background. So this is underwater, so I'm going to choose this blue over here. Now you're going to just fill the entire thing with blue, and because it's clipped, it's only going to be for the characters. Now this part, you can adjust the multiply layer to have it be as dark or as light as you want. I'm going to adjust this to be about 50% because I think that looks good. So after you have the multiply layer like this, what I like to go in is I make a new layer, clip it, obviously name it again, and then I go in with linear burn. So what linear burn is going to do, it's similar to multiply. It makes your stuff darker. And I adjust it to 50 because I find that 100% linear burn is a little too harsh. I select a shadow color, usually a purple, and then I go in and start redoing the shadows to add contrast. So it will be exactly what you think. Just add it right here. I'll select my softer brush, and then we just do the shadows. You do it under the hair or under the neck, whatever feels right. Now obviously you can set it to 100%, but like I said, I think it's too harsh when I do that. So I will just set this back to 50, and I will really quickly do all of the shadows. Okay, so as you can see here, I finished doing all the shadows. I didn't do too much. I think it makes a subtle difference. So this is with, and this is without. Technically you don't have to do this, but again, I am extra, so I do like to do it. Now, after you finish your shadows, you're gonna make a new layer, clip it, name it, and then obviously, this is gonna be our lighting layer. So you're gonna actually go in and set the blend mode to add, or add glow if you're in Clip Studio. Now, you choose the color for your light. So I do remember what color I used for this beam of light here, which is this pink. So now you're gonna go in with an airbrush, and you're gonna brush where the light is. Now, obviously there are many ways to do this. You do have to have a decent understanding of the lighting, but sometimes you're not accurate, and that's okay. You just do what you think looks good. So because the lighting is from up here, that's why I brushed this area with the airbrush mostly, because if I did too much, it starts to look off. You want it to look good, but you also should be a bit mindful. Obviously, it's your art, you do whatever you want. Now after you get the airbrush down, a new layer, this is where we're gonna add our highlights, and again, set it to add. And I like to reduce it down to 50 because it gets too harsh if I do it at 100%, especially if you're working with lighter colors. So similar principle, you are going to want to trace the outline where the highlights would most likely hit. You don't want to do too much, but if you want to, you can. It's your art, I'm not going to stop you. So you kind of trace the areas where you think the light would be at the harshest, If you think you did too much, I like to go in with an airbrush. Just kind of erase it a little bit to make it more softer. And then you just kind of repeat and just do it. I like to do it on the hair, add a little bit of extra highlight. Sometimes, there's a little bit on the skin too. It just depends on where the light is hitting. Now do note that I am using a soft brush for all of this. I'm using this pencil graphite brush that I have. I kind of stole it off of Ibis Paint X because I couldn't live without it. But you can use a hard brush. Again, it's up to your style. My shading style just happens to be a little bit softer, so that's why I like to use a somewhat softer brush. Now, I will take a moment to talk about reflective lights. sometimes, you know, you want to make highlights that are not directly with the source of light because light bounces. So you just do like a subtle, very subtle thing. Very subtle. Don't do too much because it is supposed to be a reflective light. Just do like really soft strokes like this. I will go in and finish all of the highlights really quick for you guys. Okay, again, I didn't do too much. You see with and then without. You technically could stop here, but again, I'm always extra. I like to add more. What I've been doing now that I'm on Clip Studio is I add another layer. Of course, I name it. I don't clip it to the characters, but I do set it to add. And I've been taking this like dust brush, this dust sort of brush, taking like a color. Let's say I'm gonna go with like maybe an orange. I just casually like sprinkle it all over the drawing, you know? And if I feel like I did too much, I take an airbrush, casually erase a little bit away. I don't know, I just been liking this recently. I think it adds this tiny bit of texture, you know? But again, this step, completely optional. If you don't have this brush, don't worry about it. Now, after you get your basic lighting effects done, you are going to add everything from the canvas, or like, just add a new layer from what's visible. So like this. Obviously rename it. Now, you're gonna go into filter, and then blur. So I use Gaussian blur. Set the blur up pretty high. And then just give it a moment. Alright, now you have your blurred thing. So you might be wondering, what do you do with this? So I go in, and I change the blend mode to screen, just to add like a glow. Now, this is way too much for the piece. So I usually lower it down to 35. I might adjust depending on like, you know, the piece. So it just adds like a faint glow. I think it looks really nice. Now you will duplicate that layer because it's already blurred. Now you're gonna switch this from screen to soft light. Again, I think it just adds more to the colors, and then you just adjust it. I like to adjust it to be a little bit higher. I will maybe try 50%, see how I like it. And if I do like it, one more layer, soft light. And this is kind of my secret to my colors. So this soft light layer, you're gonna go in to a gradient. And you're gonna just put a gradient. So you can do all sorts of gradients to change the mood. So like, you can do like a red and yellow gradient to have this sort of effect. Blue, pink, this. You could also like reverse it too. But my favorite gradient to go with is this night sky gradient in Clip Studio Paint, which is basically just a gradient that goes from black all the way to this blue. And I kind of just like, you know, adjust it. Kind of like this, you know? You gotta play around with it, see what you like. Now, because this is an underwater scene, we are going to actually do one more step. With any other piece, I would call this done. So, back to your characters, add another layer, add, set the glow down to 50 for now, take your lighting color, and I have this underwater brush that I got from the Clip Studio Paint asset store, so it makes my life a lot easier. But if you do not have it, what you can do is just draw kind of some squiggly lines, because when you're underwater, the surface like reflects, you know? The water surface reflects, I mean. I just kind of trace like the characters with it, like this. It's okay to do a lot right now, because we will fix it later. So just kind of like drag this across, do whatever's right. Or if you have to do this manually, then you'll do your lines across. Now, after you get your patterns down for the water surface, you're gonna go in with an airbrush eraser, and you are going to just erase some of it. Because, you know, you feel like you did too much, so you gotta like remedy it. Just kind of like erase where you feel like is right. Just to like make it a little bit subtle. Like, I like to do it on the faces. So then these are your underwater effects that you add. And again, because this is an underwater piece, I go on top, I add more bubbles because I feel like it. Overlay, add the bubbles. I have a brush for this, so I don't have to do it manually, but you can do it manually. Just like, you know, just add a couple like on top. And then obviously you gotta sign your piece, because we don't like people stealing stuff, you know? I can't even type this properly anyways. Just go in. Okay, and boom. That is how I render for a piece like this. Okay, so what do you do if you have no background, you still want to do some rendering? So here is what I like to do. So as you see here, I have my character and no background. Again, you're going to want to separate your character from your base canvas. So you can see here. So it's going to be the same process. Create a new layer, clip, name, and then set to multiply. Now, there's no background color to reference off of here. What I like to do is I like to use a muted purple, but really you can use any color. I just find that a muted purple just looks the best in my opinion. And again, adjust the opacity to what you want it to be. So here. And then it's going to be the same process again. You're going to create the sharp shadows with linear burn. Again, create a new layer, adjust the opacity, and then just really quickly put in the shadows. Now you're going to add your add layer for the light. Oftentimes you're going to want to contrast, so if you have a cool shadow, you're going to want a warm light. So my purple is a bit of a cooler-ish shadow, so I'm going to go in with a warmer light. So I find that using like this orange shade with add looks good, but of course, again, it is personal opinion. So you're going to want to put in this like orange color all over like the back. Kind of like it's rim lighting, you know? So just gently do this. Now you're gonna add another layer. And same thing, except you're gonna do the highlights. I go in with either an orange or yellow. In this case, I'm gonna go in with a yellow and then just start doing the highlights. Now, because we're aiming for more of a rim lighting, a lot of the highlights will be on the edge. So you do it like so, but again, don't overdo it. And it doesn't have to be completely realistic. You would just want to do what looks good in your eyes. Just go on your gut feeling, you know, just kind of feel for it, you know. Alright, so in my opinion, this looks a bit plain. You could leave it like this, but what I like to do is figure out some kind of foreground elements to add. So you'll add like a new layer, you don't clip it, of course name it. Sometimes I go in with like a stamp brush and I just like, you know, find something. And then I'm like, okay, let's just add a little bit of it in like the front. Again, do not overdo it. Once you have your base foreground element things down, you're gonna go and do motion blur. Because sometimes it just looks better, you know, that depth of field. Of course, it doesn't have to be motion blur, it could just be Gaussian blur, but I like to use motion blur. You'll just adjust the settings to what you think works. Now obviously the foreground elements will be affected by the light. So similar principle, you will take your multiply layer, I'll just duplicate this, put it on here. And then I will create an add layer and do the glow, but you do not need to do the sharp highlights for this because it's kind of blurred. Take the same light color you've been using and then just subtly add it to some parts of the stuff in the front. An additional touch I like to do in some of these is I create another layer, create add, just set it to add, and then take an airbrush, put this bright red color in the corner, kind of create like a string kind of lights, you know. Now after that, you're gonna set this to alpha lock so that when you put in a new color, it's not going to just go everywhere. So with the green, subtly put it on like some parts of the bit. Then take a blue. It's hard to see, but what I'm trying to do is imitate kind of this natural light. Sometimes you see this like prism rainbow thing. Of course, just readjust it too if it's too harsh. Now after you get this in, you're gonna do what we did for the other one. Just add everything into a new layer, just kind of like this. And then you're gonna blur. Now, I find that setting the screen will make this a little bit too bright, so I'm gonna immediately jump into doing soft light. I can keep it to 100% because I think it looks good like this. Gonna add a new layer. Soft light. And it's gonna be our gradient layer like you see this time. And again, just set it to whatever gradient you think looks best. I'm gonna go with this like night sky gradient. And of course, you gotta sign so people don't steal your work. And that is how I would do rendering effects for something that doesn't really have much of a background. I know I'm not the best at teaching or explaining what I'm doing, but I hope those who are curious about my rendering learned something from it. I thought it'd be a breath of fresh air if I just drew whatever I wanted and then made a tutorial video, so yeah. Not sure if you guys are curious about the other parts of my drawing process like the shading and coloring, but if you want tutorials for any part of my process or just specific parts of my style, please let me know. Hopefully you guys still enjoyed the video though. I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe if you can, especially if you want to see more from me. Maybe I'll see you guys in the next video, whenever that'll be. Until then, bye!